good morning to you and welcome. Let's get the definition out the way first. Soft power means influence.
Means influence, Jeremy, but it's a bit more than that. And I'm going to give you the version, which is a country's ability to influence the preferences and behaviours of various stakeholders through attraction, persuasion, rather than coercion. And it's based on 7 pillars. And these are the pillars of things like business and trade, governance, behaviours, your people, your culture, all those things. So those 7 pillars, everyone is measured on that, and they can rank themselves and actually track how they're doing, whether it's going up or down.
What is interesting about this survey is that America remains the world's most influential country, yet it also says that the Trump administration has weakened perceptions of America's trustworthiness, but having said that, it still tops the list.
It still tops the list. People forget how powerful, how muscular the United States is. And let's face it, this research was done, at the beginning of the year, and things might have changed a bit. But it's still an incredibly powerful organization. We're living in a new world the last few weeks, we know that. But this is how we stood at the beginning of the year.
Followed by Germany and the United Kingdom.
That's right.
What gives Germany and the United Kingdom their particular strength when it comes to soft power?
Germany is because they're so structured and they're so disciplined and transparency. Their industry sector, we know, is very strong. Their culture is very strong, etc., etc. Britain is very interesting. At a conference I was at in London 2.5 weeks ago, 600 people of us at the QE Centre. His Excellency Ban Ki-moon from the United Nations was the keynote speaker. But when you look at the whole thing, one of the most powerful forms of spreading the British way is the BBC. So the power of the media around the World Service, etc. And we had the former head of the World Service talking. And he said, well, the BBC might have been propaganda 40 years ago, whereas today it isn't propaganda, it's a news source, especially necessary when people think so much of what is fake news versus real news.
As far as this country is concerned, we sit on that ranking in 36th position.
36th position out of the 50. And this is where we're very weak on influence. Now, this is one of the key things. Germany has huge influence around the world, as the United States. South Africa has very little influence. Even in Africa, it's very, very weak. But it's very interesting how governments are looking at this.
Segmentally, do you break it down? We would surely have more influence within our own continent than globally. Do you look at, do you segment it as far as influence, as far as African countries are concerned?
They've got about 100 touch points that they look at. And so, yes, the influence would be more in Africa, but you know and I know that often you go overseas and people still say, where's South Africa? You know, they're not even quite sure where it is. So outside of Africa especially, our influence is very, very low. And this is where, who are the heroes of South Africa? Well, one of the heroes is the Springboks, rugby. No, if you ask people what do they think about South Africa, they think of Mandela, they think of rugby. If you think of China, what do you think of? Well, perhaps at the beginning of this year you thought if someone said ping pong or the wall or pandas. Well, now you've got a pandemic, and that's coronavirus. So different countries have different things and different values and different qualities and are known for different things.
I'd rather be in 36th position than where Nigeria sits right now.
Well, Nigeria has been catching us up in so many different ways. In fact, in business terms, some people say it's edged ahead of us. But in this soft way of looking at things, it's way down the line.
Well,
and I think a lot of
bottom, it accompanies Bangladesh, Kazakhstan, Iraq and Myanmar.
Great company. And this is where South Africa is doing better. So we're doing better in some ways, we're doing badly in others. Education, we're doing very badly. In science and technology, we're doing terribly badly. And science and technology, we know, in the world we live in, is a crucial aspect going forward.
And just a final one, I'm assuming that it takes time to change soft power perception. This is not something that you can work on overnight. We're not going to see our position increase from 36 to the top 10 in 12 months, are we?
No, but this is where you have to have a strategy. You have to people working together. And this is where bodies like SA Tourism are crucial. But there has to be a strategy that all government departments and all parts of the country follow. And then you know where you're going. Otherwise, we're going to be all over the place going forward. And countries, top countries around the world are adopting this, and this is becoming their strategy so they can monitor what they're doing.
Jeremy Sampson is the Managing Director for Brand Finance Africa. It's called the Global Soft Power Index.